The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode of the ForceCenter podcast feed is a deep dive. We're going to deep dive into Luke Skywalker's appearance in The Mandalorian. It is a place I'm happy to dive. I am Joseph Scripshaw.
I'm Ken Knapsack, and we are going to take a look at something that sparked some discussions, some controversies. It sparked Star Wars, is what it did. I can't wait to dive in, Joseph.
Yeah, some places on the internet, it's a war in the stars. Here on ForceCenter, it'll be a nuanced discussion in the stars. That's our new franchise we're starting, Star Nuanced Discussion.
That's an event you can go to during non-pandemic times at the Starlight Bowl in Burbank. A nuanced night in the stars here at the Burbank Choir and Orchestra.
Yeah, when you say it that way, it scares me. I don't want to go. I feel like I'm going to be given a pamphlet for something. I'm not sure about that. But I'm very happy to have our nuanced discussions here on ForceCenter. And it's such a juicy, interesting topic. We're going to have a lot of fun. But first, we want to tell you, as always, that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We are recommending a book that came out on the journey to The Last Jedi. It is called The Legends of Luke Skywalker. It's this great book that has a lot of different perspectives on how different people in the galaxy thought they saw Jedi Knight, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. So to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. And Ken, we have another book thing to promote, right?
We do. We're not done giving away savings, friends. All right. No, actually, we're really happy to work with Inside Editions, publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books, Secrets of the Jedi, the Lightsaber Collection, Galaxy's Edge Cookbook. They are offering 35% off across their website with a special ForceCenter code. This excludes collectibles, limited edition products, and already discounted products. But there are a ton of great Star Wars books to grab. The offer lasts until Friday, January 8th at midnight Pacific time. To get your discount, enter the coupon code FC35, or visit the website with this link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. So go FC35 your way to some holiday joy and savings. My radio background coming into play here. As I made the joke on Tuesday, I'll do it again. Sports and weather coming up. Thanks, Dad. All right. The good stuff, the business out of the way, Joseph. Take it from here. This is going to be a fun one.
Yep. Next up, we've got Comfort Eagle by Cake. No.
Ninth caller gets tickets to the Paso Robles Mid-State Fair. 1-800-549-BEAR.
Someday we should just do an episode of ForceCenter as though it's a radio show from 1997. We're speculating about early rumors about the Phantom Menace while spinning some platters.
We're non-related. So that was our number, 1-800-549-BEAR. BEAR was the number to call in and request our radio station. A couple years into my job, met someone. I go, I work over at K-Bear. He started shivering. He goes, my phone number is one number off from that. I get calls all day and night, and this is 95, so you don't have cell phones and silences and all this stuff. My phone rings at 3 a.m, people requesting Ted Nugent. I hate you guys. It was the greatest moment of my career.
That sounds like an actual nightmare. You wake up and be like, it's Ted Nugent there. I need Ted Nugent.
Radio stories. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Joseph. We'll do Star Wars radio.
Spinning the hits from the galaxy far, far away. But for now, we're going to talk about something that is very of this moment. It is Luke Skywalker's appearance in The Mandalorian. I got ahead of myself because I'm thinking about opinions. There's a lot of opinions about Luke Skywalker's appearance in The Mandalorian. There's a pretty critical article on Vulture looking at not just that moment, but how it kind of sits in the larger future of Star Wars storytelling, what it means for a show that started off with that kind of a idea that Mandalorian is this small tale of this nameless bounty hunter, but pretty soon here's Luke Skywalker. There have been different threads where people have been working through their feelings in lots of fun and thoughtful ways about the connection between Luke's appearance in The Mandalorian versus his appearance in The Last Jedi. So all sorts of fun discussion, sometimes heated, sometimes friendly, but there's so much here in this appearance that is interesting to discuss, from what it means for the story, what it means for the larger Star Wars galaxy, and then the real world stuff of what it means for the franchise storytelling of Star Wars in our real world. So Ken, I just want to start with an overview. After you've had some time to sit with it, what is your big picture feeling about Luke's appearance in The Mandalorian? Do you love it, like it, mixed? Where are you at?
I absolutely think I love it, and with I don't want to say any caveats. There's some great discussions obviously around it. That's why we're having this episode. But I watched it. I hadn't watched it since it aired, and you and I watch episodes 2 or 3 times before we get on Mandalorian Report or any show to discuss them. So I'd seen it a few times. It didn't. It's an episode that I'd say is tough to watch if you've experienced loss recently. So we didn't watch it. But I watched it in research for this and just feel as though it's right. It's right for the timeline. And it's right for the story. And it made a lot of sense to me. Is it melodramatic? Yes. Is it full of hubris? Yes. Is there a little bit of long, drawn out tension where even sometimes the editing is not my favorite? Yes. But I really love the moment. I really think I do. And it fits well into the Luke Skywalker story.
Yeah, I think that's where I am coming at it as well. We had such a fun explosion of, I couldn't believe it the night I watched it, that they really did it. And then I, watched it a couple more times. You and I recorded Mandalorian. And then we had the great video that we did with Star Wars, the live stream we did with Star Wars Explained to Alex and Molly. And that was great. And then I just sort of exhaled. And then I rewatched it just today, honestly, as we were getting ready to record. And it was so great to just step back and just see it with fresh eyes again. And I came to the same conclusion. I think it is just such great Star Wars storytelling. Everything in it feels right for the character of Luke. It feels right for Grogu. It feels right for Din. It feels right for the other characters on the bridge reacting to it. I think it is a statement about who Luke Skywalker is at that exact time, about how the Jedi are perceived in the galaxy. And it's really rich and satisfying Star Wars storytelling. And yeah, then at the same time, that's like my big picture feeling that overrides everything. But then within that, they're like, oh yeah, I could nitpick about what if the force push there was at this angle, or yeah, the CGI to me looks great if you look at his eyes. There's some lip stuff going on. You can get into all that nitpicky stuff, and I think there are valid, real world things to discuss about how often Star Wars storytelling does reconnect back to the big characters and the big themes. Or big storytelling moments, rather. The themes I think they should connect to all the time. But those are all, nitpicky is not quite the right word because they do matter, but those things aren't as important to me as when I just take that big step back. It just feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to be sure to give you an opportunity to air any CGI thoughts that you need to.
And now it's like Festivus. We come for the airing of grievances about CGI. No, it's fine. And again, I said before, where you watch it is a big thing in fandom nowadays. I mean, I keep going to the Game of Thrones example, the Solo example. It is just what it is. Settings on TVs, or you watching it on your phone, or you watching it on your laptop. The great Portlandia joke where they're like, music as it was intended to be listened to on your MacBook. It's a weird thing. I watched it on my MacBook this morning, and it looks fine. I agree with you. Look at the eyes, concentrate on the eyes, and you'll be okay. And I've also already seen people. Maybe I think maybe they fixed it already. I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. And maybe they will. And I'd be okay with they did. Once it wears off, and this goes for Leia and Rogue One, which is still one that doesn't work for me in terms of just how it looks, but it works for me in the story. And I think over time, you're just able to concentrate on the story. At least I like to think I can, and others like you do as well, where it's just like Leia being there, saying hope, it means more to me than it looking a little wonky. I think we'll be okay. I also saw some stuff, not the place to maybe fully address it, but, deep fake stuff going around. And some people asking, why couldn't deep fake looks better? Well, how come Lucasfilm couldn't match that? And I don't know the 100% answers on that. I will tell you, I wonder if there's some union stuff, SAG stuff. There's some developing issues with deepfake and what it could mean and how much of the actor's face. I don't know all the answers. I'm not saying I know this, but I just don't think you can factor that in. Deepfake is a new thing, and it's at times a scary thing. It's at times an amazing, breathtaking thing. But just look at the lawsuit with Crispin Glover and Back to the Future 2, where there's a lot of things about actors, images, and union rules, and all those kind of things that I don't fully understand. And I just think that might have a factor in some of it as well. I'm not an expert there, though. So anyways, that's off my chest, Joseph. As of today, I'm like, cool. It's Luke. I like it.
Yeah, I think that's the way I felt as well, that it's less distracting every time I watch it. It's just the reality of what it is. And I guess for me, this was such a moment because it was, Tarkin was like, ooh, he's in the window. Cool. So that's the way they're going to handle this. And then it's a surprise to, everyone in the theater who didn't have that spoiled of, oh, wow, no, they're doing this. This was such a different appearance where, like I've said before, I love how they build up the iconography of Luke Skywalker. It's one X-Wing. The people on the bridge don't know what that means, but we do. Then we see the cloak. Then we see the blade without color. Then we see the green blade, and it builds and it builds, it builds. And the first time you're watching it, it makes you ask, it does take you potentially out of the story because it makes you ask, how are they going to do it? Because they, it's not going to be magically Mark Hamill plucked out of time. And so I think the first couple times you view it, your focus is on the can be. I know it wasn't for everyone, but it can be on the technological aspect of it. And that for me is just fading and fading. And, the way I watched Star Wars for years before we had a podcast and before, you could read hundreds of opinions on social media, coming at it from all sorts of different angles. I just watched the movies, and there were parts that I loved, and there were parts that I thought were flawed or, looked weird, or whatever. Like, oh yeah, I can tell that I can see that line around that ship nowadays. That was great back in the day, but now it looked like, and it wasn't like a stop, need to find out who failed, blah, 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 and it's just a story, and it's technology, and you roll with it so you can experience the big picture story. And I was delighted to kind of already be at that point with it of when I rewatched it this morning, it was just like, yeah, no, that's how they accomplished it. Better, worse, whatever, kind of doesn't matter. It is what it is. And that's how they chose to accomplish it. I think all of your thoughts on, we don't know everything that goes into the decisions, but it's a team of extremely qualified people, doing cutting edge technology, which is a tradition of Lucasfilm. So if they made choices the way they did, I'm sure eventually we're going to get to hear about it. And I think that there's probably really great reasons why they made those choices.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to move on to some of the ideas that go into the storytelling itself. So I want to start here, Ken. What do you think of Luke's choice to answer Grogu's call? Is he being a good Jedi, or is this one of our favorite words here on ForceCenter? Is this hubris? Which way do you see it? Is this Luke being a noble Jedi, or is this Luke performing an act of hubris?
What a wonderful word. And also keeping with the ForceCenter discussions, there might be a lot of, hey, we'll maybe discuss that a little bit later, but I'm pulling in some of the stuff. So this is one of those too. Yeah, I think he's being a good Jedi. I think this is part of his purpose. I think this is what he was tasked with in a lot of ways. And again, he answered a call, and that's something we will certainly focus on a lot here. He, to our knowledge, was not just bebopping around the galaxy, looking to take younglings for training. That might have been part of what he was doing, but you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like, he didn't just show up and go, well, what do we have here? Yoink. This was a call, and he answered it. And he answered it in keeping with what I believe is one of his larger purposes in life right now at this point in his life. So I like the call. I think it's the right call. We can answer some of the details of that in here a bit, but that's where I'll start. Yeah, Luke Skywalker, pretty darn good Jedi.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of discussion about comparing and contrasting Luke in The Last Jedi, and I think there should be even more comparing and contrasting of him in Rise of Skywalker, which we'll talk about as well. And I think that's all really, really valid. I think there's some great stuff here comparing how Luke felt he had made mistakes with what we see in The Mandalorian. But I just go to the ideas that were set up in The Mandalorian that, Mando presented Grogu to Ahsoka going like, I'm on a quest, take him. Ahsoka had, some concerns that are well-founded in the story of Star Wars, that taking a child away from their parent, when the child is already feeling fearful of losing that parent, it can be dangerous. But even Ahsoka says, I don't think this is right for me right now, but you could take him here. And if Grogu chooses to call, maybe a Jedi will come. So even Ahsoka, to my reading of it, is not saying he shouldn't be trained. She's saying, I think it's dangerous. I don't think I'm in the place to do it. But if the child still truly wants it, this is a way to find out if he truly wants that. So that's the way he's set up for the call at all. And then from Luke's perspective of a traumatized child calls out for help.
Yeah.
Of course he shows up. We're going to talk about the hallway and the violence and the symbolism of all that. But that's for me just that real starting place of, I do think there's some elements of what will become hubris, what will become a legend that is a lot of weight for the human Luke Skywalker to bear. I think there is some of that in this scene that connects beautifully to Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. But I think just the basic, I answered a call for help, is really, really powerful. I think one of the big moral ideas in Star Wars that's very important to me, which I see playing out in Luke's story a ton, is, this idea of action versus inaction. When is it moral to raise the blade in defense? When is it moral to just throw the blade aside? I think that's so key in Last Jedi in particular, of that he comes around to the idea that I thought I was going to cause more harm by doing anything, but I've been reawakened by Rey and Leia and Yoda, and I realize that you do need to take action in certain situations. And the question is, the incredibly difficult path of the Jedi is, when is it right to take action, and when is it right to stand back, and when are you doing even more harm by not helping? And I don't think there's any reason for Luke to not answer this call in this, when you look at it through this sort of a paradigm of action versus inaction. I don't see anything noble in saying a child called out requesting my help, and I said no just in case something might go wrong.
Right. That
to me is a kind of fear, the kind of fear that I think he's talking about in Rise of Skywalker, of giving into, of any action I take might be bad, so I can't do it. So that's where I go with that, is that it is absolutely a great Jedi action to answer an individual's call for help.
Yeah, kind of part of the general purpose, and what they're there for. Guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. That's part of what I believe the job description is.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the other murky depths here of other ways to look at it. In particular, this is going around a lot from just the fun visual aspect to the actual moral ideas behind it. Do you think the comparison between the Vader hallway scene in Rogue One with Luke's hallway scene of cutting through the Dark Troopers, do you think that was intentional by the Mandalorian team to draw those two ideas visually together, those two parts of Star Wars storytelling together? And if it is intentional, what do you draw from that?
Well, that was a bizarre meme to be spread around for me. There's a lot of great shots, the two side-by-side shots, or even some cases the video clip or a GIF and everyone sharing the "I am a Jedi like my father before me." I am like, wow, your definition of Jedi is a little different than mine. With the Sith Lord hacking away at those trying to reestablish peace and justice in the galaxy, a little different. However, I know Jet Lucas has some stuff out there about I cut this side by side. Look at this, and I think it could be intentional, and we haven't gotten the details yet of that. I think it could be intentional, but if it is, or to my knowledge right now, even if it isn't, what I draw from it, and this episode's a lot about you and I just discussing what we pull from this. I go to this: anger, fear, aggression. The dark side are they. Have you ever sat next to your father and go, "Oh my God, I sit like him"? My grandfather, before he passed, was shuffling down the hall, and I went, "On days my back hurts, I walk like that." Oh my, whether you want to or not, kids, you become them. And there's an image of always this possible path for Luke. Now, I think in this moment, I think he was centered. I think he was focused. I think he was, despite the video game kind of feel of that, what'd you call it, Luke's hallway of salvation. I think he was right in all that, but I think to me, I just take it as a reminder of this is always dancing beneath the surface of all of us, but particularly the son of Skywalker. You walk like your father, you talk like your father, you have the ability to get mad. I sometimes have a little temper, again, to pull in my life. I sometimes have a little temper at technological stuff, like a lot of people. I'll scream, shout, and I'll say a curse word. My mom one day was like, "Your father, he just goes in his garage, he just screams and shouts and says curse words at tech stuff." I'm like, oh, I see. I took it as that. If you want to draw any comparison, that's where I go. A reminder. Okay.
So you are an MFing Jedi like your father before you.
Yes.
No, I take what you mean. I think that there's great fun in stripping away the legend of it all and the dark side, light side, and just like, yeah, no, they're related, yeah. and in the way that they move and in the way that they are drawn to the light, but have as common Skywalker trait of impatience and just glowing hearts of compassion, and what that the risk of that level of compassion can be. I think that storytelling is, for me, the most powerful connection between the prequel and the original trilogy of Luke finding a way to truly make compassion and attachment a strength, rather than that fear of losing that connection that dooms Anakin. But for the hallway scene, I think I don't know if it's intentional, because it absolutely could be intentional, but it could also be like there are a lot of hallways in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it might just be a fun thing. Like, I think, in Clone Wars season 7, Maul's got a great hallway fight scene, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think the scene that really pops for me, the framing is the end of Luke's hallway fight scene. There's, smoke. He's in the shadows. He's an unknown figure, and just that blade is glowing. That does feel like a little intentional to the beginning of Vader's hallway scene.
Right.
And I'm really interested in the idea that these scenes are, whether intentional or not, are mirrors of one another. I totally get from just like a fun, they have similar fight styles. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. Here's Anakin as Vader fighting down the hallway. Here's Luke, and just like the tactics and the movement, and like I get that comparison of just for fun. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. Obviously, Vader is not at all a Jedi in the hallway scene in Rogue One, and I feel like that's what actually makes this comparison powerful. That Vader is slaughtering people to get those Death Star plans, to just cement his control and his oppression over the galaxy. So you have their intent. Then you have Luke saying, these are dark troopers. These are automatons made for death who are trying to attack and control a innocent child who called out for my help. So I feel morally okay about cutting through them to get to the child to protect him. So you've got super different motivations. But then I think the thing that makes it really interesting to me is the images that are the most similar. The, dark silhouetted figure with the glowing blade are reversed. That's Vader's at the beginning when they're like this terrifying figure. What is that? It's unstoppable. Here comes death. And that's Luke's picture at the end of cutting through the Dark Troopers. But in a really fascinating way, we get a similar reaction from the characters on that bridge when they've watched this dark figure for unknown reasons to them, except for maybe Din, maybe Bo-Katan, but for generally unknown reasons, just massively, powerfully, impressively slice through these robots that are going to kill them all.
Yeah.
And for everybody on that bridge, when they're seeing that silhouette of Luke with that glowing blade, they have a moment of feeling like the rebel troopers who see Vader at the beginning of his hallway scene of, don't open the door. Don't let that guy in. That powerful guy might be death. And I feel like that's what really makes these scenes have this great, interesting rhythm with one another of, you can totally understand how, from Cosca Reeves or Cara Dune's perspective, like, don't open the door. That guy is incredibly powerful and we don't know what he wants of us. Is he going to come in here and slaughter us? And then the total opposite. The blade is deignited. He steps into the light. The hood comes off. He's calm and kind, and he is not Vader at all. And I think drawing that comparison, that power by itself is frightening, but it's the intention of how you use that power. And when those rebel troopers see that silhouette of Vader, they are right to be terrified because that's how he chooses to use his power. And in that moment where our characters on the bridge are terrified of Luke, they find out they're wrong because that's not how Luke chooses to use his power.
In terms of Star Wars poetry, the beginning is not the end, but it's the same. It's the same poem we're reading here. I like that take on it.
Yeah.
I like that take. It is a journey. And again, even some of the stuff I'm saying, it's in terms of reminders, it's not that certainly not the joy for the scene is not wrong if anyone's experiencing that, but yeah, that it's not necessarily one-to-one. Like is what I think I'm hearing you say there too, is just, there's a lot to learn from looking at the first scene and where it ends up with Luke. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple way to try to say what I've been saying is, if it is a comparison then you want to make, the comparison is power is its own thing, but how you choose to use it is what makes a difference, and that is just a huge contrast between those two things. Vader is to be feared. Luke isn't really to be feared because he doesn't want to hurt anyone.
Right, unless you're Moff Gideon.
Unless you're Moff Gideon, but he leaves him alone, so we'll see about that.
Yeah, even then.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, and certainly Moff Gideon has some fear of Luke. So let's talk about the sort of power fantasy of it. This was one of the things discussed in that Vulture article. And there are certainly people who are just like really happy to see Luke Skywalker kick ass. On some level, I am too. I'm happy to see him, ignite that blade and fight to save that child. But what to you is both the danger and the benefit of just getting really excited about the power fantasy of a lightsaber and a fully unleashed Jedi Knight using their power? What's good to you about that, and what's bad to you about that?
Look, I'm there for it too. Luke on the sail barge is a key moment in my Star Wars fandom. I've talked about that. I've written about that. That is Luke, kicking ass. Absolutely, taking on an entire organization by himself, and that's part of the Star Wars fun. So I think you can live with it on that level too. But I just think inside the Star Wars story, I look for this. You and I have discussed this from a certain point of view. The cave, the Dagobah cave of Luke looking for a reason to use it being the blade. I think that can sometimes spill over into how we take this in, and I want to ask why do you want to see the lightsabers? And this is even kind of going back to the "I am a Jedi like my father before me" meme that you and I were just discussing. It's like you said, is an example of the darkness that can be at Luke's fingertips, but at anyone's fingertips with these lightsaber. Like power is unlimited. You said the dangers of power, and that's always a dangerous thing if you're not fully understanding or wanting to engage what is at stake in the bigger fights, the lightsaber fights. It might be cool. What are the themes there? Why are you fighting? Again, these characters looking for a reason to use it. Luke was not looking for a reason to use it. He would have gladly walked on there and had the droids just wave as he walked on by, letting him that choice. You chop off one speeder bike front, and you chop a speeder bike in two, and kind of the will to see that grows. The will just to see lightsaber followed by destruction grows. And that sometimes, to me, I'm going deep here on a moment where you could just enjoy it, by the way. Be like, yeah, he's kicking ass, because I am too. But I wanted to analyze it. I just think you need to constantly ask yourself, why do you want the characters to use it? Because the characters, if they're true to the characters, if they're true to the Jedi way, are going to be asking them this. I'll wrap up my thoughts here, pitch it back to you. You and I are just starting to dabble into Light of the Jedi, the first book from the High Republic. So no, even though the review embargo's up, no spoilers for those who've read it, but there's a character, Bel Zetifar, who's a Padawan, who has some great observations of a lightsaber, of what it looks. And I'm totally paraphrasing, but just, it's a weapon, but it serves as a warning as well as a weapon. Like, just the ignition of it and the color of it. It's like saying, please stop. Please stop. And the weapon itself, it's not clumsy and random, right? That's what we hear about blasters. It's used for precision, that even if it has to cut your limb off, it might cauterize the wound and give you a chance to maybe survive and redeem yourself down the line. Darth Maul, we're looking at you. And if you do die, maybe it's a quick death. It's not as messy. It's not as brutal. And so that's part of the elegance there. There's maybe even a sympathy for the victims, even in death, a brutal compassion, if you will. All that to me is what I take out of lightsaber action now. I didn't know. Sometimes it was just me on a playground going zoom, zoom, zoom and chopping people in two. I want to know why. Why do you want to see the lightsabers?
Yeah, a lot of great thoughts, and I agree with you. There's so many great lightsaber and Force thoughts, and I am only 80 pages into Light of the Jedi, so I'm looking forward to digging into that even more. But I think you've got a lot of great thoughts here. I think there's just the Star Wars is an action adventure fantasy, and I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying it as an action adventure fantasy. I think. It's built on Saturday morning serials and all that kind of thing, Saturday afternoon serials and pulp and genre, and it's a cool guy with a laser sword. Got it. But I think if you really say, like, I am a Star Wars fan, I love Star Wars, I love engaging with Star Wars, I think if you stop at kicking ass, if you stop at saying, I always wanted to see Luke kick ass, and I'm so glad he just kicked ass and tore those robots apart, I think that there is a danger that you won't be open to the bigger ideas of Star Wars. Does that distinction make sense? Of it's one thing to just you watch it and that was cool, and the fantasy we all had as kids, and you make any cylindrical object we find into a lightsaber and make the voom 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 noises. It's the fantasy. It's great. But when you get into sort of the power fantasy of it, and if you're like, I love that scene, this is what Luke Skywalker should be, he should kick ass, and stop there, I think there's a risk of missing the larger ideas in Star Wars.
Yeah, again, we're getting, it's not necessarily how everyone takes it there, but, you burn one person with a dragon, next thing you know, it seems pretty easy to keep doing it and rooting for it, and that's a fair question to ask, and that's something that we're talking about Luke. And this, to me, relates to Luke in The Last Jedi. Why he wouldn't do it? Why? There's many reasons to that we're going to get into. But, this is part of it. I go to the Battlefront 2 scene. It's so key for a reason, and I mention it every time, blah, 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 because it addresses yes, you are playing a video game where you are cutting stormtroopers down. We are going to ask you to examine that. If you believe in Jedi and want to understand their way, that's something they need to ask themselves constantly.
Yeah. So... and I totally agree with that. And I think that when people talk about the power fantasy of just wanting to celebrate only violence, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the risk, where we can be a little bit more Vader in the hallway than Luke in the hallway.
Yeah.
But I think there are benefits to it as well, to the power fantasy, in a part of the reason that this kind of mythic storytelling speaks to us and is a morality tale, because I don't think Star Wars is meant as just a cautionary tale of here's what you shouldn't do, right? There's plenty of lessons in Star Wars of here's what you shouldn't do. Don't give in to your fear. Don't let go of your compassion. Don't seek power just for power's sake so you can take whatever you want. But I think it also does. This is that action versus inaction morality contrast that I'm fascinated with. I think Star Wars does make arguments that to be inactive is also a questionable moral choice. And I think if you have a power fantasy from the perspective of, I wish I was like Luke Skywalker, and I wish that I felt more capable of making a difference when I see a problem. And now making it carefully so that you don't tap into just the hubris of I have power, so I decide everything for everyone, and the answer to every obstacle is just quickly cut it down with the laser sword. That stuff is all dangerous, which is why the path of the Jedi, the path of Luke Skywalker is noble and easy to fall from, because it's a really difficult path. But I think I can let myself get into the power fantasy of Luke Skywalker in a scene like this, because he is cutting down droids built for control and murder and death. And he's doing it to go save a child, to go answer a call for help. And I think the lightsaber in some parts of Star Wars is a symbol of, like in Return of the Jedi, it won't help anyone for him to cut down his own father. It will only hurt. The blade doesn't help right now, so the blade goes aside. But there are other moments where the blade needs to come up in defense of people. And I find that power fantasy helpful sometimes when, like, I'm never going to be a space wizard with an amazing lightsaber. But remembering that I can make the choice to use what power I have to try to help, and that we all have power. Even if we don't feel like it, we do. And we can choose to use it. And we have to choose whether or not we're using it out of anger or frustration or just to prove that we have power, or if we're using it to truly help someone. And I can let myself enjoy the power fantasy of Luke swinging the blade in this moment because I believe he is truly helping. Does that make sense?
It 100%, because I he is right. This is you can get in the deep philosophical side of it, which was fun for us to do and to wrestle. And again, I don't always have the answers. I just have what I take from them. But yeah, he shows up and, I think of Anakin and Padme and aggressive negotiations, right? And that kind of joke. But yeah, at some point, you have to. At some point, you need to. And that's the call of the light side often. So I think you're right. That term power fantasy can be very negative. It can be very just smash X on your controller, and that's the only action you want to see. But it also can be a reminder, a testament to doing what you have to do for the sake of the galaxy, the sake of the people and the creatures in front of you. No, I definitely think you're right, and that's why I keep going, even though I'm drawing the comparisons to what could have been with Luke and the darkness dancing beneath him at times. In this moment, he is doing exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah. I totally agree. Great to talk about the power fantasy, because that is definitely something I think is important to examine. It's always going to be one of the tensions of a franchise called Star Wars that asks you to really, really think carefully about when you take a big, powerful action. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of where Luke's coming from, where his head is at this period in the timeline, because I think that's another important part of it, is just remembering that Luke Skywalker isn't this constant. He and all our characters are changed by where they are in their own journey, their own life. So what do you think Luke's relationship and understanding of the Jedi Order of old is at this point in the story? Is he trying to follow the old ways, or is he forging a new path?
I think it is this is a cheat. It's a new path to the old ways, which might put him in line with some of the stuff Ahsoka's got going around her brain too. Look, I read the Jedi Academy trilogy of books in '94. All right, I haven't talked about that. That was also about the point I kind of pulled the plug on reading the Star Wars books at that point. I felt there was a little bit. It's been a while. Don't toss any eggs at me. It's been a while, but I think there was a little bit of lather, rinse, repeat back then, give or take some details. I think Luke, and we don't have a ton of what Luke's saying on this. But I think taking his actions in the Shattered Empire comic series and how he was planning to go forward, I think there is a little bit of, I need to do this. I need to rebuild the Jedi Order. But keep in mind, he wasn't there for it. He didn't experience it, pitfalls or successes. So he is just building what he believes is the way. I've always taken, there's a little bit of humor that I take from Luke going in Yoda's hut in Return of the Jedi of, well, then I am a Jedi. And Yoda's just like, you what? No, you're not a Jedi. It's about his father in that final but it's like, there's also kind of like, I'm a Jedi. Like, dude, you don't even know what the stationary looks like.
I love that. Yeah, that noise from Yoda's grave. Like, oh, somebody's wearing their big boy Jedi pants already, and it's a little early for that.
Yeah, and so what that shows me, and again, this is maybe me pulling something out. It's my interpretation of it, but he is trying to rebuild the Jedi Order at some point. He's going around. I think he and Lor Santeca going around trying to find out what the Force is. The Legends of the Jedi book shows a lot of Luke going to learn what the Force is and what it is in different cultures and worlds. I think that's some great stuff from Luke. I think it's part of why he's collecting things. But when it comes to rebuilding the Order, yeah, I do think there's a little bit of, all right, I'm gonna open up a business now, and he's gonna learn how to run that business a little bit later on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he is so in everything that we've seen in this part of the Star Wars timeline. He is so interested in studying the Force and understanding it. And I think this goes back to if there is hubris in this scene, I think some of what it is Luke's obsession with mastery. I've talked about this a couple of times. It's just a perspective of Luke I love, that Yoda really gives him the business in Empire Strikes Back of, you're always looking for adventure. You're always looking over the horizon to the next thing. You need to be focused, of serious mind. And I think Luke, because he fails, he walks away from his training. He so takes that seriously. I think it's reflected in this scene when he says to Din about Grogu, talent without training is nothing. That's to me one of the most important lines for where Luke is at in this scene in The Mandalorian. So I think that's a part of it of, I am not in a rush to get to what needs to happen next. I am slowly studying, finding old artifacts, learning everything I can, preserving everything I can. If somebody needs my help or wants to be trained, I deal with it on a case-by-case basis. I knew that my sister Leia was powerful in the Force, and I thought that she should be trained, and we worked on it, and she decided to let it go for different reasons. And so he lets that go. And then he hears a call for help. Like we said at the top of the podcast, it's not like he is the Jedi of old. He's not a Jedi seeker going out and like finding some random Nautolan family and going, how your kid can sometimes lift rocks. Can I take him? He's responding to a call. So that to me says he is studying the old ways, but hasn't made any decisions exactly about how he is forging that next path, other than this real conviction that he has that mastery and training are the way to avoid mistakes, to avoid using power in the wrong way, and to keep yourself safe. As he says about Grogu, he'll only be safe if he has mastered his abilities. So I think in terms of, if there's anything from the Jedi of old that Luke is focused on, it's this idea of mastery being so important. But I don't think he's just got his foot on the gas going, how many Jedi kids can I find?
And by the way, someone who would, rushes off and gets his hand chopped off would be like, mastering and taking the time is a good way to keep yourself safe. Just to boil it down to that bumper sticker kind of thought. Comes from a experience from Luke there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you go back to the beginning of that Bespin duel, and I love that moment where Luke is like, I think you'll find I'm full of surprises. And then just immediately he gets his butt handed to him, because yes, you're quite impressive where you're at, but you don't understand the scale, right? Like,
yeah.
You're good, but you don't even know what great is right now. I think it's such great storytelling in Luke's whole journey, and does connect to the sequel trilogy really well too. Let's talk about the Ahsoka of it all. Why do you think Ahsoka and Luke did have such different reactions to Grogu's situation? Do you agree with? Do you think Ahsoka and Luke are in disagreement? Do you think that you agree with one more than the other? Where do you go with that?
This has been fascinating for me, because I had not watched the Ahsoka stuff since the Luke stuff happened in Mandalorian. So now you can kind of connect it and put it down and find a little bit more complete story. Again, me pulling out what I take from it. I am often off in the wilderness just trying to find my way through. All right. Bear with me. But upon further review, here's one of the things I think. I'll say this. I think Ahsoka ends up in a great spot, and it's a spot we all would expect her to take, going back to her end of her Jedi time in the Clone Wars season 5, and then where we pick up in season 7 and all the stuff she's done. She's got a lot of valuable, clearly valuable experiences that would make me look at her as a bit of a trusted source for thoughts on this. She ends up in a great spot, which is about choice. And I think Luke does echo that. We'll discuss that. And she does not react solely on her first campfire chat with Din. And this is one thing as I was watching, it's like her first sitting around the campfire where we learn Grogu's name. I think it's really clear there's a tinge of pain and a tinge of failure. You and I discussed in reviewing this episode about there's some darkness behind those bright eyes. What's got her down? Some stuff has happened beyond even what we know, and I can't wait to figure out more. But I think, follow me here. Fight back if I'm wrong, Joseph. But there's a tinge of Luke on the island, of Luke on Ahsoka for me in the first campfire thought. There's a lot of like, I can't, nope. I mean, the fact that she kind of walks away and it's like, just let his skills fade away. Because that's the only safe thing. Like this attachment is big, and look, you and I know, and she knows, but it won't. Attachment doesn't always lead to darkness. But she's so afraid of the power. I think she has her own fear that I didn't maybe pick up on, or maybe I'm just putting in there now after seeing Luke's. And I'm not saying she's right or wrong, and Luke's right or wrong. I think they all end up in the same spot. But on the flip side, and then I'll kick it back to you here. Luke has an edict. It's a straight up mandate put in front of him. Pass on what you've learned. And he later learns that also includes failure and folly and all those kind of great things we get in The Last Jedi. But at this point, I kind of consider him a missionary, for better or worse. He's also seen redemption. You have talked about this, sir, about the fantasy conversation that these two characters could have. And part of it would be Luke going, Ahsoka, he came back. He came back. She has not seen that redemption, or maybe at this point doesn't know it. So she could be afraid of the attachment that Grogu has. She has seen where it's led. And while Luke doesn't want Grogu to go there, he's also felt the other side. He's alive because of that redemption. And in a way, Luke is Rey on the island right now, if that makes sense. Like he would believe what you said, the training harnesses skills, as opposed to Ahsoka saying, let them diminish. But so he is at that point in his life, which is why it makes it more powerful when he tells Rey at the on the island, like, oh, let me tell you how this goes. He hasn't experienced that. His very life has been saved by the redemption of someone whose attachment led him to the dark side. So that's all the stuff going on in my head.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of great thoughts in what you just said, and I really agree with your perspective on Ahsoka in that episode of The Mandalorian, that there is definitely a sadness there. I think it's really important and interesting to know we don't know exactly what's been going on with Ahsoka. There are some parts of her timeline we know, and those inform her mood. I think it's really powerful in that campfire scene when she is telling Din what Grogu remembers, that he was at the Jedi Temple, that he was rescued, but then it's dark. And how does that make Ahsoka feel? Because she went through Order 66, and then she tried to help. She helped build the rebellion, helped where she could. But is there any guilt there? Because she knows Grogu and probably other Jedi were out there, other younglings, other foundlings were suffering, and she wasn't there to help them.
Oh, totally. And this is, again, it's experiences. And that's why I think now these two moments, there's a lot of great analysis. I read a ton of it following the Ahsoka stuff because it's juicy, it's rich. And hell, George was on set, so maybe he just flew out of his flannel into the scene. But I think the complete picture with Luke there, and to me, the sadness we felt from Ahsoka actually seems stronger upon further review. Like you're saying here, we don't know what's going on, and this to me, follow me, makes Luke even more the New Hope. Like he is now more of a legend, and there's more pressure on him because Ahsoka's like, "Hey, I'm on another path." Which, by the way, I think it's okay that she turned away from this choice to train Grogu. They're not all on the same path. I think of Obi-Wan telling Ezra, "You're not supposed to be here. get off Tatooine. This isn't your story. Almost literally. She's not ready to teach. Not just Grogu. She might not be ready to teach. Kanan wasn't either when he first met him. So this isn't an indictment of Ahsoka. It's just, that's her journey. But now it's like you turn to Luke, and that thing she says at the end of like, a Jedi might find him. And then there's a pause like, there's not a lot of Jedi left anymore. Man, there's truly pressure on Luke. And I think that's, I think it's important. It's one of the things I take from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really agree with you about just looking. There's a lot to be said about what are Luke and Ahsoka's relationship with the old ways. Ahsoka knows them intimately. Ahsoka has strong opinions about, how the Jedi taught her all these great ideals, then didn't quite live up to them. And I think she is trying to be out there being a Jedi and trying to live up to the ideals that she was taught, but didn't see being followed through by the Jedi at their end in their hubris. Ding, ding, ding. Points for using hubris. But I think there's also, I think Luke and Ahsoka are more interesting to me from the perspective of what have they been through? What are they going through? I don't think Ahsoka is wrong in her observation, because we've seen it in the show that that Grogu is in danger of using his power in selfish ways, from fear, from anger, because he doesn't know any better. He's in danger of lashing out if someone separated him from Din. If he didn't choose to leave Din, but if he perceived in any way that Din was being taken from him, he absolutely would lash out in anger. So it's not that Ahsoka's wrong.
No.
It's that she has this perspective of attachment of, it can really be a danger, and I'm not in a place to deal with that. And for my headcanon, we're going to wait and we're going to see what the creators tell us about their stories. I think it's really important that I don't think Luke and Ahsoka have met yet. I think this is exactly what you're saying. I think this is an absolute result of Luke. Maybe he's a little cocky because of it, but he had the ultimate triumph of compassion. The triumph that Yoda, I think, thought was maybe possible, which is why he gave him the Jedi trial to face his father and see how he handles it. Poor Obi-Wan, because of the experiences that he has, doesn't think there's any hope for Anakin, that, and tells Luke, your compassion for Leia is great, but it's going to be used against you. And damn if that isn't exactly what happens. But Luke triumphs over that. He gives in briefly to fear, but then he pushes past it. His compassion for his father is what helps reawaken Anakin, and he has these victories of compassion. And I don't think that he has been able, in my opinion, to really sit down and share that with Ahsoka. And I think Ahsoka maybe might feel better about attachment and less afraid of it. Or maybe Luke's being cocky. We don't exactly know yet, but that's my headcanon, that Ahsoka is focusing on the danger of Vader, and Luke is focusing on the victory of Anakin.
Yeah, and both right. And Luke's probably, I think there's just a natural level of shall we say, confidence if you're going around with a mandate to rebuild the Jedi Order. I think Luke's trying to learn, but yeah, I think some of that's there. I think you're right. And I also, this whole sequence in this discussion has made me think of, let's also give Leia some credit for seeing Rey's heart when training.
Right.
And being completely just understanding there are no written endings. Leia believed in Rey the individual, not the concept or the family name. I think that popped in my head a few times when analyzing the best way to train.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other big thing for me that you kind of hinted at about why Luke and Ahsoka react differently, or how they react differently, is, I think they're both great Jedi who are aware of the old ways. Ahsoka even more, but are cautious about trying to find a new path. I think they're, going through the galaxy, helping where they think they can, where they think they should. I think they're both at this point in the timeline, noble Jedi. But then even within all that sort of like, what is the right Jedi philosophy? Who is the best Jedi? They're still just individuals who make decisions based on their experiences. And I think it's really powerful and cool that Ahsoka says, maybe it'd be best for him to just walk away, because Ahsoka has found great victory in simply walking away from the Jedi, not walking away from power or connection or compassion, but saying, yeah, maybe sometimes the best thing to do is just walk away. And Luke's coming at it from that perspective of, no, what he needs is training, because that's what I screwed up on. So they're both coming from this perspective of lived experience on while both being, I think, noble in trying to do right by Grogu, they're also informed by their own individual life experiences.
Yeah, I think this is all about good intentions, and a lot of correctly with a lot of focus on the Ahsoka episode was about the choice. See the big difference? They're not plucking Jedi out of their mother's arms at 3. This is a different way, and there's a lot of truth to that. And let's have some justice for the Jedi. I don't think it was. I mean, it's not. I don't know. We could look back on what they did in the old days, but I think that the what Ahsoka gets to is right. But as much as you and I joke about how we love that word hubris, we'll probably say it 50 more times today. That should be again that T-shirt we need. But one of the things you and I talk about a lot is just this idea that what things characters say are not facts. They're not always facts. Sometimes they are. But this is not a conversation about 100% on paper, which, by the way, Yoda does have some opinions on books and what they teach and what out of them. But this is 2 characters we see now, as you and I are discussing, that have gone through a lot and have different perspectives, experiences, and ideas on the same thing. And that same thing is a good idea. What's best for the individual here, Grogu. And that's what's been fun about this conversation and researching it this weekend.
Yeah, and I so agree with you. I think they're in alignment on the thing that probably matters the most is what is best for Grogu. There is no what is best for the Jedi. There's no, what is best for me. It's for both of them. I think they're coming at it from a perspective of, what is going to be best for this child. And along those lines, the next question I wanted to ask you is, what do you think Luke would have done if Grogu had continued to cling to Din's leg even after Din said goodbye? Because we get this great sequence of Ahsoka says, if you take him to the stone, he might choose to call. And Grogu does make the choice to call. Grogu perks up when Luke is coming. He reaches out to Din to say, like, open the door. It's okay, So Grogu is already showing some, like, I want to meet this guy. Mm-hmm. But then there's that shyness, and Luke is saying, he wants to go. He's just waiting for your permission. So Din says goodbye and says, those great kind words of attachment of, I will see you again. I promise. I'm letting you go because I think it's best for you, but I love you. I'll still be there for you, kid. And then there's that moment where before R2 comes in, where Grogu still clings to Din's leg. What do you think at that moment Luke would have done if Grogu changes his mind and he just scurries up Din's leg and hides?
This is great. And you and I have already, I can tell we got a lot of similar thoughts on this. Surprise, surprise. But first of all, this whole sequence makes Luke Skywalker like John Lovitz's character in From a League of Their Own, where he's an agent going around trying to recruit baseball stars. It's all the same. It's all the same conversation. I think there would have been a little bit of a hard sell, kind of joking here. I don't think Luke would have just turned away. However, I want to give Luke some credit. You mentioned it earlier. I hadn't even thought about it when I made my notes here. When faced with this before, his first student said, I'm out of here. For X, Y, and Z reasons, Luke said, that is the way of it, your choice and the will of the Force, and Leia gets to go on and pursue a different path. Luke already kind of experienced this, and he already kind of had some experience. I will say this, and here's where my ramble begins, and I'll pass it back to you. I think you and I are in agreement. It might be a cheat answer. It might not be. But Luke showed up because he had already communicated with Grogu and sensed what he wanted. And I'm not saying Grogu was on the Scene Stone literally saying, hey, somebody can get me. What's your name, Luke? Cool. I'm over here. I want to go. I don't necessarily think that, but I believe Luke kind of sensed Grogu's connection to the Force, that call for help that you mentioned, and that Grogu had a desire to move forward. Whether or not he could articulate it, it was time for that chapter to end. It was time for to go forward on a path. And to me, Luke didn't show up to convince him. He showed up to help him, but he needed to convince Din, because to me, Din's attachment might have been the danger here. That's what could have been detrimental to Grogu. But Din releasing him while he was still maintaining a love for him, and Din kind of coming to terms with his own attachment and letting go, I think Grogu's already learned a valuable first lesson. And yes, Anakin was given that lesson as well. with Shmi and the great Shmi moment, a great moment of heroism in Star Wars is Shmi letting him go. Anakin learns that lesson and goes a different way because, hey, we all have choices. Those are still in front of Grogu. But to me, I think that's the first lesson, and that might have been part of the reason Luke was showing up. What's he say? The first thing he says, he's asking for permission. He wants to go, buddy. You've got to let him. And that's part of the whole attachment equation for me.
Yeah, no, I like the perspective that Luke is already clear because he had this Force connection. He heard this call. And I love the way those kind of things are described in a lot of the books. The movies tip into it, but obviously the books in the comics have a little bit of room to go inside people's heads and describe what those connections might feel like. And I think you can infer them from things like, the connection between Leia and Luke at the end of Empire Strikes Back, of Leia just feeling Luke's call and seeing this, fuzzy image of where he was. It is really fun to think of what is it that Grogu really put out there. Was it just sort of screaming out, not screaming because it's probably the light side, but is it just sort of calling out of, I am here, see me? Or is it more that Luke was able to sense the emotions of what Ahsoka did, of I was on a path, I was home, I was safe with my people, and then horror happened, and here I am, So is it that Luke is really sensing this is what he needs? And then I love what you're saying about Luke being there with a little bit of an agenda to convince Din to let go.
Yeah.
Because he already knows that this is what he felt from Grogu. But I also like that Luke has this really strong perspective, and maybe this is hubris, maybe he'll end up being wrong, that, look, people are going to keep coming for Grogu. He needs to master his abilities so he can defend himself and so he can choose how to use that power so other people don't choose how to use his power for him.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think Luke would have ever taken Grogu against Grogu's wishes.
Right.
I think if Grogu scurried back up Din's leg and made it clear that he wasn't willing to go, I think maybe Luke would have come to the same conclusion that Ahsoka did, of like, his attachment to you is too strong right now. It's a dangerous attachment. But I think it more would have been, I'm worried about this little guy. He's going to keep being in danger, but he can only come with me when he chooses to. So when he's ready, come find me. I think his response would have been something like that. I think he would have still had his perspective that Grogu isn't safe until Grogu is a master of his own abilities. But I'm not going to take the child if the child doesn't want to go.
Yeah, and I think one of the key conversations that could happen in my head canon is if they're off traveling and on to the training, and if Grogu misses Din, that Luke allows him to miss him and have conversations about him. Who knows? I'm not saying Anakin was told to, wipe that from your brain, but he's 9 and 10 years old, and he's going through a lot, and you get the feeling that there's not a lot of warmth out of Mace,
No.
And almost as they're like, yeah, you're here now, get over it. And I'm not saying 100%. You and I love justice for the Jedi, but that could be part of what was done wrong in the past, and maybe that's again the examination of attachment. Din, you got to let go. Grogu, you're going to miss him, but this is the right thing, and we can address it. We can have all those emotions at once and not be, stoic, emotionless space wizards. That might be part of what Luke's trying to put out there. We don't know. We'll get that pamphlet down the line.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that would be pretty amazing if Mandalorian season 3, Mandalorian season 4, Luke just shows up with Grogu because like his training isn't done, but it's okay for him to visit you.
Yeah, like I said, I think a review of just like it's like going back to visit your Muggle family during summer vacation, and maybe it does it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're spiraling off into some really fun headcanons and what if, but I will also just go back to the actual episode and why I'm feeling like Luke's choices they're definitely informed by his strong opinions, and definitely I think informed by his real focus on mastery. But I also just think for me, when I watch the show, Grogu's reaction to him makes me believe that Luke is right, that Grogu is having a hard time letting go of Din. It's sad for him, but that poor exhausted little guy, after all his blood's been taken out and he's been through hell, his eyes perk up when he sees Luke. He crawls up to watch Luke on the video screen. He, whines and reaches out for Din to open the door. Everything he's doing is saying, I need this guy. I want this guy. He came for me. He answered my call, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And hey, then we could talk about, hey, Luke going, does at any point he say, yeah, I'm right? I don't know. He doesn't say it now. I don't think he says it in this moment, but it could lead to that kind of talk.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more about the future of Luke and Grogu. But for now, I want to ask this question, then we'll take a quick break. Why do you think Luke did not get involved in anything else that was going on that bridge, or even ask any questions about the rest of the conflict?
Look, this is great. This is fun. This is also some Star Wars unintentional comedy. If you rewatch it now with a little bit of the dust settling and excitement for the moment, it's almost bizarre that no one asks him and he didn't ask them anything. Just like, are you a Jedi? Yep, that's it. Okay, take my kid. No, there's a sense, there's a feeling, so not holding anyone to the flame of that. But as far as Luke, I'm going to ask this. Perhaps this is one of the mistakes he makes later on. Perhaps he looks at, and it became a legend and all that stuff we've talked about. And I think in this moment, he's focused. He has that mandate I'm talking about. Yoda, pass on what you have learned, rebuild the school, open up, get your business license, do this. And I got to wonder, and the Shattered Empire comic is 4-issue run. Go back and revisit it, folks. I love to kind of revisit it every now and then. I didn't have time to do it going into this episode, I will admit. But I even go back to that. There's a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, where Luke's just like, look, I did my part. I fought this war. I took down the Empire too. I'm part of that directly in some cases. Now I have a different thing, and this is not my fight anymore. It's no longer necessarily a fight. It's establishing a new way of rule. I'm not going to get bogged down in that because I have to reestablish a Jedi Order. But first, I have to establish what I am as a Jedi. I have to learn the Force. I have to go out on this mission. My education is continuing, and I have to think, especially if you've read the history books and maybe don't have you have some opinions on the Jedi, but you weren't there. But maybe Luke's reading about the High Republic era and going, a healthy, reformed, just Jedi Order is good for the galaxy. You all figure out the rest. I need to go do this. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying it could lead to some wrong. Maybe Luke should have been like, do you all need some other help right now? I can call up Leia right now. Why am I on a Star Destroyer? Or even a smaller class one? You know what I mean? Like maybe you could point fingers at Luke and maybe he does down the line. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I think this is for me, again, going back to that Jedi balance, my interpretation that so much of it is about when do you choose to take action and when do you really choose not to take action. And I think it goes to the Sith Jedi divide that the Sith want to control. They think they should control. And the Jedi want to help as much as possible while letting everybody make their choices. And they only really intervene when it is clear that somebody is asking for help, somebody needs help, something truly violent and unjust is happening. Then they step in with those blades as a shield, hopefully, if not as a precise weapon, a precise choice when they do choose violence, but they don't want to control. And I think it's great in all the Luke storytelling that we can see him disengage from being a weapon of the rebellion, a weapon of a government or an ideology about halfway through Return of the Jedi. He's like, great, I rescued Han. I feel right about that. I feel right about the way I did it. I am now I'm stepping out. Now I'm going to go, finish my training. Yoda gives him basically the assignment to face your father. Obi-Wan gives him the different assignment to end the man who was your father and the Sith and the threat. Then he tries to go back to business as usual, right? Of like, well, I'm on a mission for the rebellion to stop the Empire, which is all just, all things I should do. But it's not working because my battle is this personal thing with my father. He's not going to Vader with the dad, turn back to the light side, then we'll go kick the Emperor's ass, right? Yeah. Even when he's talking to the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, he's saying, you and I have taken ourselves out of this battle. You're just going to be blown up by the rebellion, He obviously does want to stop the Sith. That is right and just. But it's more like he learned the lesson from Empire Strikes Back of like a part of his destiny is to just deal with his relationship with his father. And then you're right, in all the storytelling that we have after Return of the Jedi, the Shattered Empire is those mini stories of, what big actions Leia gets up to, what big actions Han gets up to. And Luke's like, there's a force tree in danger.
Yeah.
That's my business. You're not sending me on a big military action. If somebody's going to be shot right in front of me, I will stop it because that's unjust. I'm not going to let people die in front of me. But I think that I need to relinquish control. I don't need to, because I'm the Jedi and have all the power. I don't need to grab the reins of the galaxy and control it and tell it where it should go. I should go take care of what's in my lane, which is preserving the Force, helping when I encounter people who need help. Then in Battlefront 2, you talk a lot about that Pilio scene with Luke. I love that. Correct me if I'm wrong timeline-wise, but Operation Cinder is going on. Big galactic problem. And he's like, I'm looking up artifacts.
When you say it like that, sorry, it's the worlds are being burned. I need that compass.
Because Leia's on top of that, and I think it is. And this is so great because we can debate the morality out of it. Like, he's a Jedi, he should be using his power to save as many people. Everywhere where there's violence, he should be there trying to stop it. He should be going to the heart of the remnants of the Empire and cutting them down. It's horrible, but it has to happen. You can have that argument, but what the storytelling we have right now is that he doesn't want to be in control of the galaxy. His sister, his amazing sister, has got that. So he's taking care of Jedi concerns, the balance of the Force, finding out what the past of the Order should be so he can understand what the future of it might be. And I think that's exactly the path he's on here of, I'm only here because this child called for my help. I'm not what you think I am, Cara Dune or Bo-Katan. I'm not just some being of immense power who's going to enforce my will on every situation I encounter. If someone asks for help, I'm going to choose whether or not I want to come help. And to me, it's fascinating to think if Cara Dune would have been like, hey, I've heard rumors about you. I saw you once in passing. We've got a situation here. Stay and help. Would he have said, let me think about it? Would he have said, right now I need to help this child? How would he have reacted if he had been asked for help? I think he would have really measured it, because I think that's where he's at as a Jedi is, I don't want to make the mistakes of the past of being over-involved, of being overly controlling. I'm going to look at each situation and ask, am I really needed? And is this the time to use my power? Is this the time to choose action or to be passive and let the balance of the Force work itself out?
Yeah, I think if any one of them asked, I think he almost has to stay, right? I mean, it keeps him not has to, but I mean, just what he tells Del Meeko is, because you asked. I think that's very powerful. You brought it up. We talked about it on the scene by scene conversation about Luke and Vader, but I love that moment when the Ewoks agree to help, and Luke, you're absolutely right. He looks around, and he's kind of like, my work here is done. It's elsewhere. It's part of this story, but it's elsewhere. They got this. Sherpa, low grade, and the team, they got all the help they need. I need to put my trust in that version or that path for them to take. I'm out of here. I got other things to do. In a way, it's a very general way to look at it, but I think it connects to what's going on here. And again, it might be wrong. He might be looking back, just like we look back now and go, Qui-Gon, you couldn't throw the other slaves on Tatooine a bone? You couldn't do that. It's okay to question it. It's part of the Star Wars story, is mistakes along the way and how you recover and choices and all those wonderful things we love breaking down. So I have no problem rolling up my sleeve and going, Luke didn't ask. Fair.
Yeah. I mean, and there are a bunch of things going on that bridge, right? And is there any world where Luke should have been like, I sense the Darksaber. Let me decide who has it. Why would he? That's Mandalore's business, Should he be getting involved with that?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Or, I don't know. I'll be the referee. You guys fight.
Yeah, and then in terms of just the this is an Imperial cruiser. That doesn't seem great, but you're all here. You're in control of it. You seem like you're doing what you need to do. You didn't ask me for help. I think you made the joke on a review, and I think it's true. Maybe he does send a space email to Leia, hey, I found this kid on the cruiser. Might be a thing. I think the thing that I would really love is some sort of storytelling in this era where Leia is like, I understand you are on your path. You are helping where you think you are needed. And I know you don't want to just be the one man, military arm of the New Republic, but I have a situation and I need you.
Mm-hmm.
How does he respond then? That's really interesting to me.
Well, because then the legend is building, then it is growing, which ties in some of the stuff later on in his life. When you're talking, I think of Poe being frustrated with Rey in Rise of Skywalker. Like, you're a bat, we need you out there. Oh, I'm on this journey, and they both kind of, are right. They both need to be on these paths. So, anyways, complicated layers in being a Jedi.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about even more of them as we look at some of the connections to the sequels and come to some conclusions on our thoughts on Luke's appearance in The Mandalorian. That's right. Can you believe it? We have even more thoughts, and we'll share them when we return. And we are back to discuss Luke Skywalker's appearance in The Mandalorian and how it connects to all these other great points in the storytelling of Luke Skywalker, the Jedi, and the larger Star Wars galaxy, and our real world. A nice, small, limited topic this week. Ken, let's talk about The Last Jedi. In The Last Jedi, Luke feels he started to believe his own legend, that he became cocky and made mistakes because of it. Do you see that in this scene? And larger question, do you think taking Grogu will end up being one of those mistakes?
I'm just really interested and just completely lost on Grogu's future. I don't think everything needs to, be super just connected. And so I don't necessarily believe, I should say, that Grogu meets his end at the hands of Kylo Ren, or in truth, the Knights of Ren, right? All details there in the comic series of what actually happened. I don't know that, but I think this could be, again, part of the journey. And I think that's the storytelling we don't have. We know the Ochi of Bastoon stuff and kind of where he's going later on with Lando. Like, clearly it seems like his search, or his own kind of search for just compasses, started to kick up a notch into other things. And maybe he does help. Maybe, he's not infallible. And so that could include a little bit of ego. You're an Obi-Wan guy. Obi-Wan has some moments of ego.
Ooh, yeah.
Mace Windu has some moments of ego, Grogu, ego, and ego. Yoda does. They're not infallible. And so I think I could see that the Grogu path could be part of what ends up happening to Luke, not even if it's not specific that Grogu is one of the students killed, or by that time he'd be a little bit older. Maybe he's an assistant PE coach at Luke's school. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I love that we don't know Grogu's story yet, and I think we should not jump to years in the future. That, of course, everything moved in this exact linear line, and he was in the temple, and bad things happened to him. I understand that concern, and it's a fun thing to think about. But I do like that Grogu's story is wide open right now, and we don't know yet. I think that, to me, is the power of this, is we don't know yet if this was a mistake, right? Was Ahsoka more right? I mean, Ahsoka did say, let the child choose whether or not to call out, but Ahsoka was afraid of the attachment, and Luke doesn't seem to be as concerned about that. They said goodbye peacefully, and it's Grogu made a choice, and Grogu is going to learn and grow and learn mastery, and Luke seems okay with that, and maybe that will end up being a mistake, but we just don't have that storytelling yet, which I'm excited for, to wonder what it's going to be. From what we can see of Luke on screen in The Mandalorian, I said before on our review, I love the picture of the legend of Luke Skywalker, the way everybody on the bridge does not know what to make of him.
Right.
Watching him through the screens, like they're watching a Star Wars story, we see him through the eyes of other people in the galaxy, and we can see how the legend can grow. I love that the story sets up that this bridge is full of just titans of combat, and they're like, we do not know if we can make it through these dark troopers. We this might be it for us, and really underlined by Moff Gideon laying it out there, and nobody's seeming to disagree.
Yeah,
which really elevates the true power of a Jedi, the true power of Luke. That he's like, yeah, I walked through them, and yeah, they probably look kind of fancy and impressive, but I barely broke a sweat. My heartbeat doesn't seem elevated. I'm incredibly powerful. So it's from the perspective of other people in the galaxy, you can see how the legend would grow. And from the perspective of Luke himself, even though I think he is extremely noble and trying to do everything right, if he keeps running into problems where he's like, well, I've weighed it, I feel confident that using the blade is just, and I do it without breaking a sweat, how could you not get a little cocky with that amount of power and that amount of mastery protecting you from making a mistake, physically or philosophically?
Yeah, it'd be only natural in a way, and maybe we'll see examples of that down the line. I don't know.
Yeah, in the Grogu stuff is just how impatient do you feel for the future of Grogu's story?
I right now I got to tell you, not too impatient. I think part of that is there's so much content right coming out, so we'll be asking about Cassian Andor and his what do you have for breakfast real soon. But I definitely want to know. It's when you introduce a character this memorable and this powerful into the story during this timeline, and we all know where it ends or where we think it ends in terms of Luke and Rey and things we got in the sequel trilogy. Yeah, you naturally want to know. So I can't wait, but I think I can wait.
You got some good Jedi patience on the future of Grogu. Yeah, there is a joy in being told this strange, non-linear story of, we already know how the things Luke wrestles with and his choices at the end of his life, and his new life is a part of the cosmic force, but we don't yet know about this moment, and that's really fun. In The Rise of Skywalker, Luke admits that it was fear that kept him on the island. Fear of what, do you think? And if he had been able to push past that fear earlier, what action should he have taken?
I think I don't. For me, it's not too much more than fear of past mistakes, and I think there's a little bit I think he kind of, well, I would say he gets over his fear of training Rey, though his lessons are a little dour, a little dour. But he wants to, he wants to get involved. The novelization has a little bit more. He makes a little bit more of the decision when he shows up, when they're touching hands. You could definitely get the idea that he was going to be like, you know what, let's go. And then that happens and he doesn't. So, and he finds a way that I think you and I in the end kind of agree was best for Luke, which we can get to in a second. But I just think, fear of mistakes of not just with Rey, but also could it be a little bit of the fear of just like facing Kylo is basically just looking at your biggest failure in the face. And if you're not emotionally prepared to deal with that, and to face some truths about yourself, you're going to keep running from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is. I think the fear that he's talking about in Rise of Skywalker is this large fear of failing at walking that high noble road of knowing exactly when to take action and exactly when not to take action. His failure, as far as we can see in Last Jedi, and his final telling of the story to Rey, which I think is the one that has the most truth, is he saw Kylo destroying everything that he loved. Luke Skywalker, has been Jedi Master, stopping things like that from happening. And for just a brief moment of instinct, as he says, he ignites that blade, and it's one moment of failure in his mastery, and it has such huge implications. So there's that. I've walked this path of mastery. I've valued it, and I had a moment where I made a bad choice, and that's how volatile and how much responsibility that kind of power is. If you slip for a second, it can have devastating consequences. So I think there's that kind of large theoretical, philosophical, and then he projects that and says, look, that happened to Yoda when he lost Dooku. It happened to Obi-Wan. It happened to all the Jedi when they were so ignorant and didn't see Sidious coming and had the hubris. But I think you're right. You're totally right that there's also that personal face to it of, I failed my nephew, and I think that's powerful. It's what he says to Leia is like, I came to face him and I can't save him. And it seems like he has finally come to terms with, like, just because I can't personally turn him back to the dark side doesn't mean that I don't have to take responsibility and,
Yeah.
apologize and share some wisdom. And save everybody's lives while I'm here. Yeah, I really like connecting that moment in Rise of Skywalker, because I don't think it is a contradiction to anything that he says in The Last Jedi. I think it highlights where he comes at the end of The Last Jedi. There's been lots of great conversation about how much his appearance in The Mandalorian, boldly swinging that saber, kicking ass, defending a child, saving a child, does that match up with the Luke that we see in Last Jedi? And I think, yes, to me, it does. A lot of great discussions about this. But I think that there is this power that Luke is convinced by Rey and by Leia and by Yoda telling him, let go of your obsession with mastery. Failure and mistakes and learning from them is also another thing that you can pass on. Mm-hmm. And I think he comes to this choice of, I was wrong to choose inaction. I was wrong to give in to my fear that if I put even the slightest toe out of place, everything will fall apart and it's all my fault. That's the fear I was giving into. So I need to demonstrate to Rey, into the galaxy, that it is good and right to take noble action. I myself, Luke Skywalker, do not want to raise a blade to my nephew. Nothing productive will come of me doing that in this moment. So I'm going to show the galaxy the nobility of taking action. I'm going to show Rey the necessity of not being afraid of your power, but finding the right way to use it. And I am going to do it in a way that is, for me in this moment, pacifist. I'm going to take up the blade in a symbolic way, because that's all I need to do this time around. And there's a power in that. You and I have talked about that a lot. I think people have really great insights and discussions on that. But I think another element of it that sometimes doesn't get discussed as much is what he actually says to Kylo. He says, you're wrong. The war is just beginning, and I will not be the last Jedi. It's not just that Luke is saying that pure pacifism is always 100% the correct choice. I think he's always also advocating that, when darkness rises, light has to be there to meet it. You have to find a way to take action, because just not taking action is bad too. And I feel like Luke is, not only by the projection and by finally accepting that blade that Rey has offered to him again and again, he's also just saying to Kylo, I'm not going to be the last Jedi. People are going to rise up to oppose you, and that action is necessary and good.
Yeah, there's a lot to this. You and I could probably go back into Last Jedi 3 years later. Here's what I'll agree with everything you say here, but the idea, this appearance in The Mandalorian, to me makes Last Jedi, one, more powerful, but also two, more tragic and even more frustrating. And I enjoy that. Maybe I'm the sicko here. I love when my characters fail and frustrate me, because I feel I learn more about them and perhaps learn more about myself, where they end up. And everything you're talking about, where Luke ends up in Last Jedi, is tremendously powerful to me. I think you asked the question of, if he had been able to push past that fear on Ahsoka, what action would he have taken? I think the answer is ignite the green, like everyone wanted, Steel made t-shirts about. I think he would have done that, and that is absolutely why people were frustrated. And I get it. That's a lot of the conversation that I had off air with some of my friends, like, oh, but he needs to know that's what he should have done, or I just want to take that lightsaber and run down the hill, and we make the Mecha Luke jokes, the great Hello Greedo video. But that frustration is real, and I still think that's okay. It's okay for you as a fan to feel frustrated, and it's because Luke, you could do this. You could do what Rey is asking, but he is afraid to do it. And also now with where we are in the galaxy again, his mistake leads to not the formation of the First Order, but now they have a lot more power behind them, right? We're back in the beginning almost. And I think he knew, that's where he lands on, again, not to remix, not just what you said, but what we said before here, but he just knows the galaxy will continue to be where it was, even if he wins. If he kicks ass, they'll lean on legends and not themselves. And that's also real fear too. So he lands on the best way to be a legend in the lesson. But all that to me is made even more powerful by getting to see Luke at his height, and it should make you, if you're a Luke fan, it should make you emotional. You should punch your fist in the air. You could shed a tear. I think all that's tremendously valuable and valid, and it just makes his decision in The Last Jedi at the end, to me, and his passing of peace and purpose, even that much more powerful to me. Maybe not everyone, but I think that's the connection I feel.
Yeah, I feel like that is a lot about Luke. Yoda, Rey inspires him, Leia inspires him, saying, you're not just your actions, you are a symbol of hope. And he listens to that. But I think Yoda just really gives him that permission to forgive himself. And I think what he does is he thinks creatively, he thinks masterfully, he uses his absolute mastery to say, remember back in the day when I could find my footing and say, I know what the situation is. I know it's right. I know it's just. I know the way to use my power in the way that's going to help the most people and hurt the fewest. And he reconnects to that, and it's very, very different to have Luke there in person, young, swinging that green blade and cutting down those droids, and it's cool and it's power. But I agree with the perspective. It's not ultimately that different with what he does in Last Jedi. He regains that confidence to find a path forward, to find a creative path forward that only helps keep people alive and doesn't cause further damage. I think for me the what should he have done is really fascinating, because he could have just said, like, right, Leia's forming a resistance, I'm going to go, I will work with you, I won't do anything that I don't think is right, but I will try to prevent tragedies and that. Or he could have taken like the more personal path, like he ended up doing with Vader. And there's a part of me of like, I think part of what broke Luke is he knows he can't get through to Kylo because, or rather Ben, because Ben blames him. Same way Obi-Wan can't get to Vader, but Luke could. So it's fascinating to me of, what would have happened if Luke had said, I screwed up. I made a very bad mistake. I wasn't there for Ben. I missed it, how bad the darkness was pulling at him in his training. I pushed him over the edge, but I need to pick myself up and keep going. I'm not going to go fight a war, but but Han and Leia, I will take you to your son, and I will stand there with my blade and I'll block any incoming fire, but we will go to him and we'll put our hands out. Like, is that what he should have done? Is that what he was too afraid to do?
Yeah. And yeah, I think a lot of that's there. Again, look at tracks too. Look at Luke now. not asking anyone what's going on. He's on his own journey, and that could have been part of it too. Yeah. Again, going back to the beginning, almost, that could have been the mistake.
Yeah. Thank you for your great thoughts and for indulging me on all those connections between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker and The Mandalorian. I think I'm clear on our opinion here, but do you ultimately feel like Luke's appearance in The Mandalorian is a heroic moment? Is it heroic with a side of hubris or possible hubris in the future, or is it just plain heroic to you?
Oh, he's a schlub. What a jerk. Just show him. No, it's heroic, and it is heroic by his core and his actions, but it's also heroic in appearance. Maybe he's walking around going, well, I've got to be a hero, so I've got to do things with a little drama. He's kind of he's a serious boy. He's a serious boy. Even Hoth Luke going, how you doing, Dak? Oh, you can take on the Empire yourself? I know what you mean. We don't have that Luke at all. That Luke's gone. There's no even jokes in this moment. He does, he doesn't point at Dan and go, hey, Amanda without his helmet and Amanda with their helmets. What's going on? Nothing.
What's the deal with that?
He is heroic, and he's trying to be a hero, but he's also trying to be a hero for the bigger picture, which for him is possibly rebuilding the Jedi Order at this point. So yeah, that's a long way to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think ultimately for me, it passes the Yoda test of knowledge and defense. He is, he's slicing down those dark troopers, but it is in defense of the child. He is trying to pass on his knowledge because he believes that's what the child is asking for, and that is what would be best for the child. I think what I love about it is I think the moment is pure, but within it are the seeds of that cockiness, that hubris that will contribute to him making some mistakes, because he's not accepting the fact that you're gonna make mistakes. He's so obsessed, to me, with mastery that's a big part of his fall. Of just, this is a moment in many of the greatest hits of Luke Skywalker where he managed to do the right thing, and he has such a hard time coping with it when he can't figure out the right way forward in the Last Jedi era. Up until the end, of course. So I want to also talk a little bit about just kind of some of the real world discussions going around it. We were talking about a lot of things that are internal to the storytelling and the logic of Star Wars, but I want to talk about some of those real world ramifications. So some fans who, aren't a big fan of The Last Jedi are really happy because they did see Luke swinging a green blade and kicking ass. How do you wrestle with that? Does the storytelling read as fan service or correcting a mistake? Why or why not? How do you feel about all that kind of real world back and forth?
Your Honor, I plead the fifth. I don't want to be involved in this. No, look, I try to understand it. I try to get it. I just think you and I tried not to, even though we have maybe some strong beliefs and some strong interpretations in moments, I try not to, shut the door too much. I just, fan service, I don't even understand the term fan service anymore. I think I know it when I see it. And then I don't know. Some people have some valid criticisms of what things that I love in some of the movies and stuff that they see as just trite fan service. Other people, I don't think they have a good handle on that term. Again, it's a part of the discussion. And right now, quite frankly, Star Wars Twitter is a gas fire, a trash fire with gas fire fuel being dumped on it. It's exhausting to you and I and many others. I don't get it. And so that's why I think people aren't looking at the bigger picture sometimes. Doesn't mean I'm not talking about your enjoyment. You might enjoy Mandalorian Luke better than you like Old Man Grumpy Luke. 100% fair. Just like you might like a certain version of Harrison Ford's Han in the, you might like New Hope, dashing cool versus grumpy general. There's these characters, their lives go on for a long time. I just think that they're not canceling out each other, and they're not making the other one worse or better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because my point being, because without a doubt, there's some people out there who I might disagree with, but there's some other people who love The Last Jedi, who are having a weird reaction to the Mandalorian thing, as if haters of The Last Jedi wrote the Mandalorian thing. And I just think it's wrong. I just think you're not looking at the full picture. And that's part of the problem I think I have with some of the quote unquote discourse out there. I'm putting big quotation marks around that. As you're not taking the time to engage with not just the story presented, but the entire picture of these arcs, of these characters as they're put down on the map and you start connecting them. And then I think a lot of people view it as facts. Again, like the big thing we say, like, this happened, this is a fact. Ahsoka said this, it's a fact. No, it's her point of view and it's perspective. So I don't know. I don't even know if that answers your question, other than I'm exhausted by it.
It does answer my question in a colorful, grumpy way. And if there's a word we love more than hubris here on ForceCenter, it's grumpy. Yeah, I think for me, we just spent a long time talking about the storytelling, about how on the surface, Luke charging through with his green saber, doing cool force moves, does look on the surface different from some of the heroic actions he takes in the sequel trilogy, but they connect narratively. They connect spiritually. For me, they're all part of this great debate of when to use your power and when to step aside and not use your power to influence events around you. So I see it from that perspective. I don't see any agenda from the storytelling or the storytellers to say, this is the Luke everybody wanted to see, so let's put it in there. It's like, that's who Luke was at that point in time. So that's the first thing with me, is just like, the storytelling is the storytelling, and I think it makes sense to the galaxy and the character, and it works. But then there is this real world thing where you touched on it, of people in the discourse with the quotes tend to sort of not let things be complex. I, as a fan, absolutely love Luke's heroic moment in The Last Jedi. I love that he showed being an absolute powerhouse in the Force by projecting himself to Crate, because that was the right thing to do and the most heroic and the noble, and he saved the Resistance, and he saved his sister, and he spread hope. Great. I also love seeing him at the height of his power as a young man, cutting down evil droids to rescue a child. But that quickly disappears. And when you're online, you're like, I'm a fan of The Mandalorian. I really enjoyed it. Then I see people like, yep, and it proves why The Last Jedi sucked. You're like, wait, no, I'll take that jersey off then. And then, you get even more complex and like, yeah, The Last Jedi was right, where he was a pacifist, unlike that garbage Rise of Skywalker where he's just throwing, and then like, well, no, I got to take that jersey. Like, I don't know. I think what I'm getting to is complexity is needed in these discussions, and in when the conversation can get reduced, I think sometimes on social media to these little bite size, and you start to get on teams. It doesn't make any sense, right? I'm not team The Last Jedi. I'm not team The Rise of Skywalker. I'm not team The Mandalorian. I like it all because it all feels honest and it all feels like it connects. And if I have a jersey, I just wanted to say I like most of it. It's complex.
Yeah, you and I are Team Star Wars, and so many people are, but that's part of the out of this specific moment. I understand it. I understand people not fully liking it, or you process it because again, you and I have had to process some things we love, some things we go on this podcast and say, man, we love. We didn't immediately get there. You and I this week, and Jennifer Landa coming back for the review. 30 years later, she's like, I have rethought my opinion on Boba Fett. That's part of the experience of being a Star Wars fan. And I don't know. I used to fight it. And sometimes I feel there's some folks out there doing great work of rolling up the sleeves and getting in there to fight. I just don't see the point of it anymore. I've been in too many bars before the lockdown of being told to my face, oh, you like Rise of Skywalker? Patting me on the head going, you like anything. It didn't connect to the other movies. It was a travesty. It was a middle finger to Rian Johnson. I don't have the energy to tell them you're wrong if you engage with it and ask yourselves the questions and ask yourself the why. You love seeing Luke Skywalker in a hallway with a green lightsaber. Why? If you could answer that to me, you've got the discussion. You've got the point in this debate. Life ain't an episode of movie fights, and I've grown tired of that kind of way of discussing Star Wars. And so therefore I'm on an island. And this episode inspired a lot of that, where I was just confused, Joseph, to your question. I was just confused. I don't know which way is up on which way people want to go with the discussion. So I'll just choose, man, that was a great Star Wars.
It was a great Star Wars. And I think, for me, I think this is another good lesson of just don't need to choose sides on a complex bit of storytelling. You can just have your own nuanced reaction and be team nuance, team complexity. So another thing that I want to talk about in the real world impacts is even if we really like Luke's appearance, which you and I both generally come down on that for this, what do you think the risk is if all Star Wars stories do end up connecting to major characters and plots?
This is a challenge for me because I've made the jokes. I'll make it again. Those who are like, oh, it makes the galaxy so small. I guess they wanted Wayne's World 3 to be about Ralph Brown's Rhodey character. All right. This is Star Wars. Skywalkers and Palpatines and Solos they're key because that's the story we're telling. All right. We can all have our Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Star Wars stories some other time. However, the High Republic coming in and already 100 pages in it. I'm excited what they're doing. So here's a challenge to me, sir, to myself. The risk could be the very lesson that Luke was trying to teach, that we need our legends to tell the story, and that we really just need ourselves and the themes and hopes and lessons, because Star Wars is us in a way, if I want to get bumper stickery. And that the key, we always hear about finding out, what is a Star Wars story in a new era or with a new part of the galaxy or a new corner of the galaxy. It's us. it's our lessons that we take from them. It's the hopes and themes that that speak to us more than the legends themselves. And that's a challenge for me because I want more Luke stories. I want more Leia stories. I want Kenobi and Anakin to have a sit down dinner and figure some stuff out. And that's part of it for me. I'll start there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that I definitely had a little bit of an emotional roller coaster for myself. Of The Mandalorian starts as nameless bounty hunter, far away from everything, and by the end of season 2, he is running into one of the most central and revered characters. There can be this but I thought this was the thing that was going to be to the side, but I think that is sort of robbing me of just looking at this story as this story. And did it work for this story, period? And it does work for this story. So I am not going to take any of those anxieties out on The Mandalorian, because for this story, it works. Now, if The Mandalorian was this lone wolf and cub story where, the child that Din found the first time was an Ithorian who had no idea what the Force meant.
Yeah.
And Luke Skywalker showed up randomly, okay, well, if he felt wedged in, then I'd have these concerns, but it felt natural to the story. I think you can say this worked for me because it worked for Mandalorian, but then also for myself in a much more real world way of I want Star Wars at some point to tell a story that is separated from any major plot development, from any major character, because I think the galaxy is that vast. And I think that what that first season of The Mandalorian really showed us, and I think parts of season 2 as well, is if you tell a story that's just about a character really, really needing something, really being conflicted, we don't always need galactic scales. We need a real, I was going to say human story, but a real sentient being story. And I think that Star Wars is eventually going to start telling some of those kinds of stories on screen. And I think that'd be good for Star Wars just to kind of say, this is how big the galaxy is, that not everything needs to have galactic stakes. Sometimes it can be very small personal stakes and it still works. I want that story, but I'm not going to be mad at The Mandalorian just because it turned out not to be that story.
Yeah, because here's the thing. The story of Star Wars, it rolls on, it rolls back, it rolls sideways. And to me, these all these names and the places and the legends are there. They're in the story. Like we said, you and I keep going back to Luke at this point in his life is the choice to show up and save Grogu, even though we enjoyed some other potential choices. Yours was Quinlan Voss. Mine was Dexter just showing up because he got wind of something. I know some Jedi. There could have been a lot of different ways to go, but these characters are there, the names of places, and to me, they continue to show up and they bring lessons with them. Luke's appearance here feeds what we learned in Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and I always want to be open to going back and just re-examining all parts of the Star Wars story while also looking forward to just what you're saying. Something new with smaller ramifications, smaller stakes maybe, but stakes of the heart. Star Wars, stakes of the heart. It's all not a bad thing because, again, as Leslie Helen says, it's all Star Wars to her. It's all Star Wars to me.
Yeah. Well said. And I want to correct myself when I was hearing it come out of my mouth. When I was saying that The Mandalorian isn't this small stake story, I think the reason I continue to like The Mandalorian is it is. It feels to us like, oh no, he's suddenly involved in galactic events because he's kind of coming near them. But so far, he hasn't interceded on them. It is still, these first 2 seasons, the small, intimate story of this person who thinks he knows who he is, thinks he can get by on life with just this rigid creed. But then he encounters this child that just totally changes his perspective. I think that's why it does work for me, is because it still is the story of Din Djarin, this one, lone bounty hunter, this one lone Mandalorian, as he becomes not alone. And it doesn't suddenly become just because these big characters and these big plot moments and ideas show up, it didn't ever stop being his show and Grogu's show to me. And that makes a difference. You touched on this, and I want to touch on it very briefly. So we talked about why we might not want Luke to show up in future stories to show that it can be done. What to you is lost in the storytelling if it doesn't stay honest to certain big ideas? Like Luke Skywalker is right now in this moment of The Mandalorian, one of the most prominent, powerful Jedi we know to be alive in this era. How would you have felt if it was, Quinlan Voss and not Luke Skywalker? Would you have felt like that feels not right to the galaxy, or what were your thoughts there?
It's easy to say it right now because it was Luke, but I would have felt, not cheated, but big questions, which again, you and I say, it's great to even have more questions about storytelling about, wow, it wasn't Luke. Well, where the hell was he? Fair question to ask. Ezra, I love Ezra. I want more of the storytelling. I think we're going to get part of that, the search and the answers. But for me, it's Luke, man. It's Luke because the last of the Jedi will you be? That doesn't mean there isn't other Force users or everything. It's just, he's the guy right now. So I think that's why in the end I was really happy with it. And that's what you could lose of just like more questions aren't bad, but just more of like, all right, but what is he really doing right now, 5 years out? Wouldn't he have heard this call? And wouldn't he have been concerned?
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me is, I've seen some tweets and the Vulture article kind of starts from this perspective of that it's his franchise choice, that like the franchise is afraid of not being connected to the legacy characters. So they got to do it. And I understand having that concern, that fear. I do want some Star Wars stories that eventually don't touch those legacy characters, like I said. But there's also the spirit of it comes from the story of much more spirit of course it would be Luke. This is exactly what Luke is doing right now. He is, answering calls for help. He is trying to learn more about the nature of the Jedi. He is trying to pass on what he would learn. So it feels incredibly pure in the storytelling to me. And it almost, in the flip side, it would be almost more cynical to say, we came up with this story about this lone bounty hunter. He encounters this young being who is talented in the Force, but needs help. We're building this story about their relationship, and we want to get to this climax at the end of season 2 where the child goes off with the Jedi. It can't be Luke Skywalker because then people won't like that. It's too connected to the main. We can't do that. For me, it feels more honest to say, no, this is our legend. This is our galaxy. This is when that character would show up, rather than having it can't be done. Here's the list of what we can't do.
Look, let me tell you something. If that door opened and someone walks through and goes, "Hi, I'm Bob Goodlaser, and I'm here to expand the galaxy so it's not that small," get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. It was Luke's place. And even something, Quinlan Voss, we keep going back to because we don't know yet, and he's kind of cool. But what does that get us? Ask the why. And wanting Bob Goodlaser is not a bad thing, but why would you want him here? Is a fair question to ask, and maybe you still come down on that side. That is that kind of the franchise wanted him here is not a bad thought. I'm sure that happens. I'm sure there's some corporate meetings of we need a legend here. This was not one of those moments. The story dictated it, plain and simple.
Yeah. And I wouldn't, if the story that the creators wanted to tell involved Quinlan Voss, if they wanted to tell a story about somebody else who survived Order 66 the same way Grogu did, and they had an idea and that, great, that's fine. I don't think that's the story they wanted to tell. I think they wanted to tell, at least at the end of season 2, this story about Din letting Grogu go because it's what's best for him, and Grogu choosing to find his path forward. And for that storytelling, Luke Skywalker made perfect sense. And I also just feel like, you and I grew up in the 80s, and I think that was a time where growing up, you got introduced to a lot of cynicism because there was a lot of kind of cheap things, cheap storytelling of like, what the show's suffering, throw a cute kid on the sitcom,
Right.
We grew up with some of that, and I think it has made us cynical. But what happened with The Mandalorian is the first season was met with resounding success. So why would a franchise go, oh no, our show's really successful?
Yeah.
We better throw Luke Skywalker in there. It feels to me, honestly, like it's coming from the storytelling, not from any sort of, we need to get that guy in there for any sort of sweaty, panicky reason,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just a couple more questions here. What do you feel like the effect on the other characters in this scene is of Bo-Katan, Cara Dune, Din Djarin? They see Luke Skywalker in action, and then he just leaves. In terms of how this makes sense to the storytelling, what impact does just them seeing him leave on these characters who are about to go off and deal with big situations in the galaxy?
I think the legend's already starting to be built. I mean, imagine this. Then he came in and just chopped all these robots down. It was crazy. So that's going to grow on. But in terms of just the reaction after those doors close, I think it could be a little bit of resistance, a little bit of cynicism, and that maybe that's part of what they have to work through going forward. Imagine if you're Bo-Katan going, yeah, those Jedi, they helped and hurt. Maybe they hurt more than they helped. I can tell you what. Let me tell you about this guy, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let me tell you about Maul. Let me tell you. Maybe Bo-Katan's like better off. We're better off without him. Maybe Cara Dune's like, that just shows that, me and my fellow foot soldiers, we're the ones that made this happen. I think a lot of those conversations could happen. I wouldn't mind it. I don't think the door closes and they all go, whoa, that's awesome. That's awesome. I have hope. I'm filled with hope. Maybe, but I think there's definitely some questions. And, Fennec Shan's like, Boba Fett kept me alive, not this guy. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like that it tells that story of Jedi being a little mysterious, that they're definitely real. Some people have definitely seen them. They have done incredible things, but it also just really underlines the sheer power of the Jedi. Again, I just love that this is a story, Fennec Shand, as well as all you so rightfully mentioned, all these powerful characters in a really impossible situation. And then this mysterious Jedi just breezes through. It really elevates the Jedi to this level of myth. And I think that's valuable to the story going forward as these characters go through and try to figure out all these problems with themselves. And, if Moff Gideon survives and he's involved in the First Order, that the sort of dark side's fear of the Jedi is, really underlined by a moment like this. And I just think it's cool to see them through the eyes of other people, see Jedi through the eyes of other people in the galaxy, and how that possibility of a Jedi is going to show up and then everything's going to be different because they are so powerful is just a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. They're probably the same reaction we do. Whoa, wow. Where'd he go? He didn't even ask for help. That's not the help we needed.
Yeah. In terms of just the scale of Star Wars storytelling, we started with The Mandalorian, beginning with this story of, at the time to us, a nameless bounty hunter. If the end of the story does kind of escalate to galactic scale, galactic stake, he's got that Darksaber. If the whole show, The Mandalorian, went from cool nameless bounty hunter, not connected to anything else, to the end of the show is Din Djarin, noble ruler of Mandalore, how would you feel about that?
I actually think I'd like it. And we talked a little bit recently about Din sharing some kind of the boy who would be king but doesn't want it energy with Jon Snow, at least in this episode, of just, I don't want the dark side. Take it. Him asking the question of what does it mean to be Mandalorian? And I'm a foundling, but I was told to not take my mask off. All those kind of things. That's a pretty interesting and compelling journey. I don't want to take anything away from Bo-Katan and her position. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know. Maybe they come to some agreement on how to rule going forward. Maybe it's something different, but that's a pretty cool, big scale level of storytelling that I could get behind.
Yeah, I think, another big theme that the Jedi get intertwined with, and I think you're so right to bring up with Luke being a symbol to like, hey, the idea that I'm presenting to everyone in the galaxy is the First Order is not unstoppable. You can stand up and push back. You can resist. It really gets this idea of democracy in Star Wars I think Star Wars really does advocate that everyone has power. The Jedi are on another level because they have even more power, but everyone in the galaxy has power and agency to make choices. And I think it would be a really interesting Star Wars story if you take somebody who is just like, I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to make money for my hidden covert of fellow Mandalorians. I have a creed I follow. I have bounty hunter guild rules I follow. And now I have claimed my power to really make choices that are huge in scale and really say, I am going to look at my own power, deal with it, and try to use it wisely to help people.
Yeah, that's big. That's big stuff.
Yeah, it's a big, good Star Wars story. Final question, Ken. How or where would you like to see Luke in the future?
Well, clearly a series with him and Grogu, the Book of Luke, starring Sebastian Stan as Mark Hamill's voice. I think we're there. No. I do want some more storytelling. A good book might be just enough for me. I don't anticipate him being in a movie. There's just too many logistics and a recast. I think we've talked about it. If it was just beyond this moment, I think a recast would have been necessary. And I'm open to that because have we talked many times here before? I love Alden Ehrenreich as Solo. So I definitely want more. I just have to be patient. I think we have to be patient, and they're going to dole it out when it's time. They've intentionally, Wendig had to cut stuff out in the aftermath. We've mentioned that before. This was pretty cool, but it's a blip. Battlefront 2, it's a blip. We're not Legends of Luke. The only biggest book we got is Legends of Luke Skywalker, which is literally legends that may or may not be true. We haven't been able to pin him down yet, and I'm looking forward to whenever they're ready to do that.
Yeah, and it's later, a little bit later, but we have the Rise of Kylo Ren comic book as well. It's some great, solid Luke Skywalker content when he is older and definitely a master and definitely a little cocky, which is a fun read. A great comic by Charles Soule, Rise of Kylo Ren, which I highly recommend as well. Yeah, I kind of like that Luke in storytelling in our real world is right now a little bit like Luke in the galaxy of. He's a mysterious figure who pops up when absolutely needed by the story. I love the Battlefront 2 writers saying, like, we really had to go in and pitch hard and say we're not just throwing Luke in there because it's cool. We really think he's a part of the story we're trying to tell. I like that does seem to be the Luke Skywalker is a powerful, sometimes mysterious legend, and even in the real world, writers and creators really got to make an argument for why he should show up,
100%.
That adds to his power. I think for myself, if there was going to be more Luke Skywalker storytelling in this era, of course, I would love to see it someday. And it's always fine with me if it is the right story and if it's a powerful story. There's still something that I'd be interested in if Disney Plus starts experimenting with animated movies. That seems to me like I'd be fine if they want to do a Disney Plus series and recast Luke and get into all that, but there'd be something powerful to me of Mark Hamill is, I think a great voice actor, and it'd be pretty amazing to see an animated film of Luke Skywalker wrestling with some of these big ideas that we talk about. Luke Skywalker and young Ben Solo on an important adventure. That would be really, really cool to see in an animated form and be able to enjoy the amazing voice talents of Mark Hamill.
Agreed. I love that.
Yeah. All right, Ken. That's it. That's all. Those are all the questions I have. Just, an extremely thorough examination of Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian.
And we hope you all enjoyed it. If you want to find us and follow us and tell us if you enjoyed it or not, you can do so by going to Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. You can also find us on Instagram, YouTube, our Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast, a podcast available on Anchor, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly, or go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter, or use that 35% off code at Inside Editions. You can follow me at Ken Knapsack, or go to kennapsack.com for the bigger picture of everything I'm doing. And hey, you know what? For what it's worth, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's. That's a great message. I can get behind that one. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Joseph Scrimshaw. You can also check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for all sorts of other things, comedy podcast, Obsessed, comedy albums. And if you're listening to this on the day that we put it out, I'll be doing an online New Year's Eve show this very evening. As Ken says, Happy New Year from everyone here at ForceCenter. So for myself, for Ken, for the noble, powerful, mysterious, sometimes flawed Jedi Luke Skywalker, this has been ForceCenter.